Why does she pull away when you give more and come closer when you withdraw? Why do emotional power games always leave you confused, overthinking and questioning your worth? Here's the truth most men never learn. Control isn't taken, it's given. And the more you react, explain or try to win her approval, the more power she holds over you. You work with, but there's one Stoic response that disarms every test, every guilt trip and every manipulation. Stillness, not silence rooted in fear, but calm rooted in value. When you stop defending yourself, stop proving your point, stop chasing her validation, she feels something shift. Her emotional leverage breaks. And for the first time, you become the mystery. Right now you may be stuck in cycles, on and off, hot and cold. But if you respond like a Stoic, calm, detached, clear, the game ends, and your value speaks louder than words ever could. If you're ready to reclaim your power without noise, like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications and comment. My stillness speaks louder than her chaos. Number 1. You saw the truth, but you chose the fantasy. There's a moment every man looks back on, the flash where she revealed exactly who she was. Maybe it was the way she spoke harshly to a waiter, or how she talked about her ex with venom, not reflection. Maybe it was how she shrugged off your values, or rolled her eyes at your ambition. The signs weren't hidden, they were glowing red. But you didn't want to see them, because the illusion was more comforting than the truth. This is the first trap of manipulation, denial in the name of hope. You projected who you wanted her to be, not who she was. You clung to potential instead of reality, thinking she'll soften over time, or she just needs love. But love isn't about fixing someone. Love is about seeing clearly and choosing wisely. A Stoic man does not ignore the evidence before him for the fantasy in his mind. Epictetus once said, "It's not things that trouble us, but our judgments about things." And what happens when we refuse to judge clearly? We invite chaos under the illusion of kindness. The truth is, she already showed you. You just didn't want to let go of the story you were writing, that she was different, that she just had wounds, that you could heal her. But there's a difference between compassion and cogence, between patience and self-sacrifice. You can't build a future with someone who disrespects your present. You can't create peace with someone who thrives in disorder. And most of all, you cannot grow with someone who refuses to look at themselves, especially when you're too afraid to look at them honestly. This is why Stoicism begins with awareness. It demands that you observe behavior, not just words. That you judge based on patterns, not apologies. Stop romanticizing red flags as just quirks or passion. True love doesn't blind you. It sharpens your vision. So next time when the signs show up, and they always do, don't blink. Don't look away because you're afraid of loneliness. Look closer. Choose truth over fantasy. Choose clarity over comfort. Because nothing destroys a man faster than falling in love with someone who is only ever a reflection of his wishful thinking. Now comment below, I choose truth over fantasy. Number 2, red flags aren't hidden, you're just emotionally attached. Manipulation doesn't begin with a scream, it begins with a whisper, a skipped apology, a subtle disrespect, an inconsistency you excuse because she was tired or just had a bad day. But here's the truth, red flags aren't buried, they're almost always in plain sight. You only didn't see them because you were already emotionally invested. When a woman talks trash about her exes, downplays accountability, talks people behind their backs, or constantly shifts blame, these aren't anecdotes, they're warnings. Warnings of how she'll treat you once the shine fades. But what do most men do? They rationalize. They say, she's been hurt, or I'll be different. That's the trap. Stoicism teaches us to observe, not excuse. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone does wrong, it's because they believe it's right." In other words, what you see early is not an accident. It's her baseline, and unless she's actively transforming that pattern, it will resurface, probably when you least expect it and when your emotional armor is weakest. The challenge is this: we're conditioned to hope, especially in love, but the Stoic path says hope is not a strategy. It's a gamble you take when you ignore who someone is, hoping they become who you want. But people don't change under pressure. They change when they're ready, and only if they choose to. And here's what hurts. Sometimes the red flag is you. Your inability to walk away, your willingness to forgive without change, your silence when boundaries are crossed. You train her to treat you whenever you ignore a red flag. You're saying, "This is acceptable," and soon it becomes normal. So what's the solution? Detachment. Not from love, but from illusion. From the desperate need for a relationship to work at all costs. The Stoic man doesn't chase potential. He evaluates behavior and takes it at face value. Don't close your eyes next time a red flag waves. Call it a sunset. Pause. Ask yourself, if a close friend told me this story, what would I advise him? Then take your advice, like a man who respects himself. Because your peace is worth more than your fantasies, and love built on denial isn't love. It's self-destruction. Now, comment below, "I see the signs, I choose clarity." Number 3. Women don't manipulate strong men, they test weak boundaries. A woman doesn't need to be toxic to test you. Most tests aren't conscious acts of manipulation. They're emotional scans, subtle, silent probes to measure where your line is and whether she can cross it. If you have no boundaries, she won't feel safe. If you don't stand up, she won't lean in. If you tolerate disrespect, she may lose respect entirely. Why? Because in her core, a woman is drawn to masculine leadership, grounded, firm, self-respecting. When you flinch at confrontation or over-explain your every move, she knows this is not a man she needs to adapt to, it's a man she can manage. Here's where Stoicism enters like a lighthouse in the fog. Epictetus reminds us no person is free who is not master of himself. Boundaries are not walls to keep love out, they are the scaffolding that supports real intimacy. You aren't pushing her away when you say no calmly, without drama or guilt. You're telling her, this is who I am and this is how I expect to be treated. But let's be honest, many men don't set boundaries because they fear loss. They think, if I push back, she'll leave. So instead they bend, they accommodate, and they quietly erode. But here's the paradox. The more you shrink to fit her expectations, the less attractive you become. The less she feels your backbone, the more she pushes, until there's nothing left to push against. A woman may test your limits, but it's not to destroy you, it's to feel you, to know if you're real. Can you say no? Can you walk away? Can you stand in your truth without needing her approval? If yes, she'll lean closer. If not, she'll drift, either emotionally or physically, to someone who can. Stop fearing the test. Start respecting yourself enough to pass it. Remember, boundaries are not about controlling her. They are about controlling you, your emotions, your expectations, your peace. Now speak out. I don't fear the test, I define the line. Number 4. She doesn't love the drama, you taught her it works. Here's a bitter truth most men don't want to face. If she screams, disappears, blames you and then gets comfort, apologies or gifts, she's not manipulative, she's adaptive. You taught her that chaos leads to closeness. You rewarded the storm with attention, and now she brings thunder when she wants connection. Many men don't realize they reinforce destructive patterns by trying to keep the peace. Every time you fold under emotional pressure, soften after an outburst, or rush to fix her mood, you train her nervous system. This works. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just her way of surviving. But survival isn't love. Stoicism gives you a compass here. Marcus Aurelius said you have power over your mind, not outside events. When you respond to emotional chaos with calm detachment, not silence meant to punish, but presence rooted in strength, you change the dynamic. You stop being the emotional janitor, cleaning up messes you didn't create. You become the pillar. But let's be clear, being calm doesn't mean being passive. You don't excuse disrespect. You don't normalize volatility. You set the tone. You say, I'm here for a real connection, not a game. And if she's unwilling to rise to that level, you walk not out of anger, but out of clarity. This isn't about controlling her behavior. It's about refusing to participate in cycles that break your peace. You don't reward emotional volatility with intimacy. You don't make tantrums feel like bonding. You protect the relationship by honoring your emotional boundaries. Here's the shift. When you stop comforting chaos, she either evolves or exits. Either way, you win. Because you've stopped being a man who negotiates with emotional sabotage. Love isn't about surviving the storm. It's about building something so steady, storms lose interest. Now comment below, I don't reward chaos, I lead with calm. Number 5. Without boundaries, respect is impossible. A man without boundaries is not more loving, he's more disposable. She won't feel lucky to have you if she knows you'll tolerate anything just to keep her. She'll feel power over you, and power never breeds love, it breeds control. Many don't realize that women don't test boundaries to break them. They test them to feel them. It's not always cruelty when she pushes a little, shows up late, crosses a line, disrespects you in front of others. Sometimes it's instinct. She's asking, silently, is this a man who will protect himself and by extension me? And when you say nothing, do nothing, or apologize for being upset, what does she learn? That her actions don't have consequences, that your standards are negotiable, that your love is available even when she withholds respect. And just like that, attraction begins to rot. Stoicism offers a powerful correction. Epictetus teaches, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. In love, you don't beg for respect, you model it. You don't fight to be treated well, you simply walk when you're not. Your boundary isn't a demand, it's a quiet standard, a line you live by. When you enforce boundaries with calm, not anger, you communicate strength. When you say, that doesn't work for me, and then follow through, you earn more than her attention. You earn her trust. It's not about control, it's about clarity. Love without standards becomes resentment, and affection without boundaries becomes obligation. So stop being the man who explains what he wants but accepts the opposite. Be the man who lets silence speak louder than pleading, who lets distance restore dignity, who doesn't fear losing her because he refuses to lose himself. True love grows where there's mutual respect, and respect only exists when your values are non-negotiable. Now, speak out and comment below. Without boundaries, love turns into survival. Number 6. You're rewarding disrespect without even realizing it. Here's the trap. She ghosts you for a day and you reply instantly the next. She mocks your opinion and you soften to avoid conflict. She withholds affection and you compensate with more love. You're not just tolerating bad behavior, you're feeding it. And what you feed grows. The most dangerous manipulation isn't loud. It's subtle. It's the slow erosion of your standards in the name of keeping peace. And while you think you're being patient, understanding, or emotionally generous, She's learning something else entirely. He'll take anything. I don't need to show up better. That's not her fault, it's yours. Stoicism strips away excuses. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And the fear of her leaving, being alone or starting over, that's imagination. Your projections keeping you chained to dynamics that drain you. Here's the truth. You don't teach people how to love you by what you say, you teach them by what you allow. If you reward distance with attention, mood swings with apologies, or coldness with gifts, you're training her that disrespect is the currency that buys more access to you. What would a Stoic man do? He observes behavior, not excuses. He responds with calm, not overcompensation. He knows that love without self-respect is just codependency in disguise, and so he withholds. Not affection, but access. He doesn't slam doors, he lets them close when they no longer lead somewhere safe. If she wants to stay in your life, let her earn the space with kindness, consistency and respect. And if she doesn't, bless her path and walk your own with dignity. You don't need more patience, you need more standards. Comment below, respect is not optional, it's the entry point. Number 7. The root of it all, childhood wounds and emotional wiring. Most men who tolerate manipulation aren't weak. They're wounded. Deep down, they're not chasing love. They're chasing approval they never got. They confuse chaos with connection, silence with suspense, and coldness with passion. Why? Because the patterns they now suffer were once their normal. If your mother was unpredictable, affection felt like a reward you had to earn. Conflict feels like a personal failure if you grew up walking on eggshells. And if your worth was tied to performance, love now feels conditional. You become the man who stays through red flags, hoping this time will be different, because deep down you're trying to rewrite a childhood chapter. This is the root of manipulation, unhealed wounds that make dysfunction feel familiar. It's not about her power, it's about your programming. But Stoicism offers a path back to yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the pain you've buried isn't a curse, it's your teacher. It shows you where you lost your boundaries, where you confused survival with love, where you forgot your value. Healing begins not with blaming her, but with facing yourself. You ask, why do I stay when I'm not seen? Why do I give when I'm not respected? Why does rejection feel familiar instead of alarming? And then, with calm and courage, you rewrite the pattern. You build your identity not on her validation, but on your values. You define your worth not by being needed, but by being whole. You become a man who no longer fights for scraps, because he knows he's not starving. A healed man doesn't need to be manipulated to feel loved. He doesn't chase chaos to feel alive. He chooses peace, and only lets in those who match it. Now, speak out and comment below. My past explains me, but it doesn't define me. Next, ChatGPT denoy. Number 8. Build inner strength to end emotional manipulation. The most powerful way to break free from manipulation isn't through confrontation, but elevation. You don't need to argue, prove, or beg. You need to rise. Because someone else's inconsistency cannot control a man anchored in self-respect. Look back at each pattern, ignoring red flags, excusing poor behavior, fearing disconnection, rewarding disrespect, and you'll find a common thread, a lack of inner foundation. When you don't know your worth, you outsource your peace. You make love a gamble instead of a conscious choice. Stoic philosophy teaches you the opposite. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering your emotions, your boundaries, and your inner narrative. When a woman sees a man who doesn't flinch under pressure, doesn't react to gains, and doesn't chase what disrespects him, she either levels up or exits. And either outcome is a win for you. You're not here to convince her. You're here to command your energy. You're not here to fix what's broken in others. You're here to heal what's unaligned in yourself. That's where real power lives. Not in control, but in clarity. So what does this look like in practice? You slow down and observe instead of reacting. You speak less and enforce more. You focus on building a life so full, no one becomes the center of it. You walk away quietly, not to hurt, but to honor your own peace. Let her wonder, let her feel the weight of your absence, let her adjust to the silence that follows your boundaries, and if she returns with respect, fine. If not, even better, you've already returned to yourself. A Stoic man doesn't fear being alone. He fears betraying himself to avoid it. Comment below. Peace is my power, not their permission. You came here tired of emotional loops, power struggles, and trying to fix things that never stay fixed. But now you understand, the only way to break the cycle is to stop spinning with it. When she sees that her guilt trips don't shake you, that her silence doesn't move you, that her tests don't touch your center, something changes. You're no longer the man trying to hold her. You're the man who knows he doesn't need to. She may not admit it, but that quiet strength, it's the one thing she can't manipulate and can't forget. If you're ready to stop playing her game and start mastering yours, like this video, subscribe and comment. I no longer chase, I choose. Stay calm, stay untouchable, because the man who doesn't flinch becomes the one she fears losing.